Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Julia Alberg-Burbank, your worship associate for today. I also serve on your board of trustees. Today, we're beginning the practice of having one of our board members sharing the words of welcome and telling you a little bit about the work of the congregation. I serve as your first vice president, and part of my work is to convene the church council, a gathering of leaders from all of our committees and groups. At council gatherings, we share the ways we are engaging our congregation in the life of our community and collaborate on how we are crafting this beloved community. As we begin today, we acknowledge that we gather on the unceded lands of the Agua Caliente Band of the Cahuilla people, and we commit to grow in our understanding and relationship with this land and with the people who inhabited it and nurtured it before our arrival. In this congregation, we welcome people of all races and ancestries and cultures, people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, of all ages and sizes, people of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical or mental abilities. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or civic engagement. We welcome all of those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here. We're glad you're with us this morning. We'd like to take a moment now to greet newcomers and visitors. If you're here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or raise your hand, and an usher will come to you with a microphone. Right now, please just share your name and where you're from, and after the service, we can get to know you better at coffee hour. Any takers today? All right. Thank you. I have just a few announcements. Today is a big day, right? So please join us for Reverend Ian's installation service at 4 p.m. as we honor and celebrate the new relationship that we are building together as congregation and minister. Reverend Ian's colleagues from around the area will join us as we share this milestone in our congregation's life. The service starts at 4 p.m. right here in the sanctuary and will be followed by a reception with fabulous food and fellowship. We hope to see all of you there. From our Social Justice Committee, please join your UUCOD friends and hand out Thanksgiving food baskets to low-income families in the East Valley. The day before Thanksgiving, we will carpool to Galilee Center in Mecca, arriving before 2 p.m. This is a no-contact distribution. You will put food boxes in the trunks of cars in assembly line fashion. Details and the sign-up are on the center table in the lobby. And for our Women's Night Out, it is at 6 p.m., and it will be held inside the restaurant Legends and Icons rather than outside due to it being dark. And finally, Script to Stage to Screen presents a very Holly Moose-miss. Holly Anderson is convinced she can create Christmas movie magic in Atlanta in August. A bear, a Scotch-drinking nun, a case of salmonella, a cranky host, and a Scrooge of a boss may say otherwise. Joy isn't where you find it, but where you create it. And that will be this Friday and Saturday, November 17th and 18th at 7:30 p.m. right here. Now, if you'd like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin@uucod.org. And now, let's ring our Tibetan bowl.
Another very special announcement. We have a new member of our congregational staff. We have a new choir director, Mr. Jim Tong. And we're delighted that he's with us, and he's here right now, and he's got a couple of words he'd like to say to you. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much, Ian. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be your new choir director here. And I'm really looking forward to meeting every one of you. And I hope that we'll have more people that will join the choir as we go along. I'm sure you'll realize how much fun we're having and how great the choir is to be in. You know, if you Google singing, and you'll find out it's really one of the healthiest activities you can do for yourself. And it really is a centering and moving and motivational thing to learn music and to stand and sing and create music. So I'm hoping that many of you will join us for rehearsal this Wednesday night at 6:30. Thank you so much. Thank you for the welcome.
And now, let's ring our Tibetan bowl to begin and listen to our music for centering.
Good morning, friends. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor of serving this congregation as its minister. What a delight to see all your faces today on this beautiful, crisp November day. I want to begin our service with these words from my colleagues Lynn Garner and Wendy Bartel. From our separate joys and struggles, we come here to find the peace of balance, to find the blessing of restlessness. All are welcome. To follow, to lead, to teach, to learn, all are welcome. To join in the dance, to catch our breath, all are welcome. To give generously and to receive gratefully, all are welcome. If you are steady and composed, if you feel completely lost, if you don't know what you're feeling, this community has a place for you, has a place for us. Here, we matter and are loved. With that mattering and that love in our hearts, come, let us worship together. We'll begin that worship by singing together. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our opening song, Step by Step. We're going to sing it twice through, so please rise in body or in spirit.
Please join me in the words on the screen as Reverend Ian lights the chalice. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. I'd like to invite Ginger to come forward. She's going to light the biopot candle for us this week. Please join me in the words on the screen. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Thank you. My reading today is from the foreword to the book A Chosen Faith, and it's written by Robert Fulghum. Here's part of a conversation in a bookstore. Mr. Fulghum, is it true that you're a minister? Yes. Well, where's your church? We're standing in it. But this is a bookstore, and it's a Friday. Yes, but you might also choose to see it as a cathedral of the human spirit, a storehouse consecrated to the full spectrum of human experience. Just about every idea we've ever had is in here somewhere. A place containing great thinking is a sacred space. Really? Just what kind of minister are you? Unitarian Universalist. And you hold services in bookstores on Fridays? You're putting me on. No, but I'm giving you an example of how Unitarian Universalists think. More than anything else, our religion is defined by an attitude, an open-minded point of view about everything and anything. What we have most in common is an uncommon way of looking at the obvious. A church is not just a specific building, but also a way of looking at the building you're in at the moment. A minister is not just a person who stands in the pulpit and preaches on Sunday mornings, but also the way some people engage with the world. A religion is not contained in a single book. There's something religious in almost any book. Okay, but I've seen a building in my neighborhood with a sign that says Unitarian Universalist Church on it, and there are a lot of cars parked around it on a Sunday morning. That looks like regular church to me. Well, of course, we come together in community and do many things any religious community does, and Sunday mornings are a culturally convenient time to meet. But we also come together during the rest of the week. To do what? To share ideas, discuss political action, work on projects of benefit to the larger community in which we live, and hear speakers on a broad range of topics. We enjoy and need the companionship of like-minded people. Mr. Fulghum, I've read all your books. Is what you write a sample of what Unitarian Universalists believe? Yes and no. I would expect and hope that most Unitarian Universalists would not agree with everything I think and write. You mean there's no party line? No dogma? Yes and no. We agree that individuals must work out their own religious conclusions. We agree that we will disagree on those conclusions. We agree to respect those differences. We agree to learn from one another through dialogue about our beliefs. We agree on a process and the tools to be used in the process. Well, give me some examples of the tools. The principles of democracy, integrity, continuing education, and individual responsibility, to name a few. Well, that sounds more like NPR or PBS to me than a church. Actually, the analogy is not far off. Public radio and public television are good examples of things that Unitarian Universalists support. We want to be exposed to a wide range of information and a broad range of viewpoints. We want each individual to take responsibility for keeping the programs on the air. It's not the easiest way to go about radio or religious community, but it's the way we choose. So, if I'm open-minded and listen to NPR and watch PBS, I qualify as a Unitarian Universalist? Let's say you have Unitarian Universalist tendencies. There are, however, Unitarian Universalists who listen only to jazz or country western music or opera, or those who only watch baseball on TV. I say again, we respect diversity in all things. What about politics? No exception, full spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Socialists, and a few who are either anarchists or just confused. It's hard to tell. We share only the conviction that one ought to be active in the affairs of the world. We don't dictate which particular party one ought to join. Are Unitarian Universalists Christians? Again, yes and no. Some are and some aren't, and some haven't decided. Same answer if you ask whether Unitarian Universalists are Buddhists. In fact, most of the specific questions you might ask have this kind of answer. Yes and no. Some are and some aren't. Some do and some don't. We're known for respecting diversity of opinion and belief. I'd like to come take a look at a church like that, but I don't want to get put on your missionary list. No problem. We don't evangelize. We keep a door open to those who are looking for the company of people like us. We find there are a great many people who are Unitarian Universalists and don't know it. When we ask most Unitarian Universalists how they came to be members, they say it's because they were looking for a community of people who are liberal in their religious values and active in their commitment to community service. We believe in the right of the individual to choose religious principles and in the individual's responsibility to put those principles into practice. I'd like to know more.
I invite you to join me in a time of quiet reflection. We will pause and breathe together in this space held by the love that is larger and more complex than we know. At one point, I will begin to sing a sung prayer. The words will be on the screen. I invite you to join me as you are comfortable. We'll sing it a few times and then pause for a little more quiet. Will you breathe with me into the quiet of this room, in the love of this community? Many windows, one light, many waters, one sea, all lifted hearts are free. Many windows, one light, many waters, one sea, all lifted hearts are free. Many windows, one light, many waters, one sea, all lifted hearts are free. Many windows, one light, many waters, one sea, all lifted hearts are free. May all beings know love. May all beings know an end to suffering and violence. May all beings know peace. Will you join your voices together as we sing our hymns for meditation, Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor. Your voices always bring me great solace and hope, friends. Thank you. The ritual of my childhood that I most looked forward to each week was that moment on Saturday morning when my brother and I would corner my mother, bringing her purse with us, if need be, so that she could give us our weekly allowance. We were lucky that our parents were able to afford to do this. And it started off as a rather small amount of money, thinking back on it, 50 whole cents. My brother was usually quite frugal with his money, spending only a bit and saving the rest. I, on the other hand, was not quite that frugal. Usually, my mother had barely dropped the 2 quarters into my hand before I had my hat and my shoes on, and I was out the door, down our street, carefully across the busy road, and then down the long hill of Queen Mary Road to the collection of retail shops at the base of the hill to Mac's Milk, the 7-Eleven of 1970s Canada. Now, today, 50 cents is nothing. But then, when I was 7 or 10 years old, it went a lot farther. A quarter would get you a chocolate bar or a bag of Hostess potato chips. So the first half of my allowance always went to one of those things. The second half, well, 25 cents was also at that point the going rate for a comic book. The spinner, they're $5 now. But anyway, at least, the spinner racks at Mac's Milk were where I first found my Saturday morning friends, Aquaman and Wonder Woman, outside of the TV screen. It's where I first met and developed my lifelong friendship with Barry Allen, the Flash. It's where I met those gatherings of heroes in the Justice League and the Teen Titans and the X-Men. And it's there that I met a group of teenagers who would become lifelong companions, the Legion of Superheroes. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. Comic books, Ian? Comic books? Poetry makes sense. Scriptures of the world make sense. Great literature, yep. I may have even convinced you that Doctor Who and Star Trek and Ted Lasso may have something theological to say to us. But comic books? Really? Yes. Unapologetically, yes. And it's not just because comic books have been and continue to be an important part of my life. First, that comic books and their offshoots, TV shows and movies and toys and games, are really big business these days. The Avengers and Iron Man and Wonder Woman and Black Panther are some of the most profitable and watched movies ever made. And how many of you watched The Walking Dead or Sandman or Heartstopper? Comic books first, all of them. Comic books have become really present and important in our popular culture. But there's more than big corporate financial success to point us in comics' direction. The Walking Dead, the TV show that we watch about zombies, if maybe you don't watch it, but anyway, there it is, raises some questions for its viewers about what it means to be human and civilized when society breaks down. Heartstopper tells the story of what it's like as a young person to come out as queer. The Iron Man movies are explicit in their grappling with atoning for our past mistakes and what responsibilities we have when we have privilege and abilities beyond those of our neighbors. And the sources of those media, the comic books themselves, continue to grapple with issues of power and privilege, relationships and idolatry, hope and despair. Sometimes, yes, dressed up in spandex and capes with lots of punching going on, and sometimes in crime dramas or slice of life titles or magic fantasy. Mostly, though, I'm pulled back to the realization that many of the ideals we hold up as important guides in our life and institutions are those which we absorbed as children. Though usually we don't hold them as uncritically as we did when we were younger, I can't escape the fact that the books that I read and the songs that I sang and the adults that I encountered as a growing being put their stamp on me. I hold the words of Micah 6:8 to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly close to my heart because I sang them almost daily at church camp. I encouraged my curiosity about people and the world by remembering Harriet the Spy and her notebook. And so my mind is pulled back to the comic books I started reading at 6 or 7 years old. Now, my favorites have always been The Flash and Wonder Woman and the Legion of Superheroes. The Flash, who could run almost as fast as the speed of light, was a rather dull police scientist in his secret identity, just a boring guy who, by accident of fate, was able to keep his home city and his closest friends safe. The Flash showed me that normal, ordinary people could be heroes and could make a difference. I've talked to you in the past about Wonder Woman and her importance. And the Legion of Superheroes, which most of you probably haven't heard of. You ever see my car? That little L on the back of my car is not a Lexus sticker. It's the Legion of Superheroes. The Legion of Superheroes began in Adventure Comics number 247 in 1958, 65 years ago this year. Before the X-Men, before the Avengers, before the Justice League. The Legion was a huge group of teenagers who lived 1,000 years in the future and banded together to keep the galaxy safe, inspired by the exploits and legends of the heroism of Superboy, Superman as a teenager. Each member of the Legion had his or her own special power, often a power shared by all the residents of their home worlds. Cosmic Boy has the power of magnetism. Element Lad can change one element to another, surprise. Saturn Girl has powerful mental abilities. Sun Boy can channel the heat and light of the sun. And Brainiac 5 is really smart. Their uniqueness is actually mandated in the Legion Constitution. Section 3, paragraph 1, subsection 2. If you have any doubt that I am a nerd, put it away. To qualify for active membership, a candidate must have at least one genuine superpower, not activated, assisted, or powered by extrinsic means, and not possessed by the contemporary Terran population. And further, such superpower must be distinct from the superpowers possessed by any other active member. Individually, they were heroic and powerful, but together they saved the galaxy over and over again. Their strength was in their diversity of power, diversity of culture and biology, diversity of personality. Their female members were as strong and respected as their male members. And those whose abilities were in their minds, were as successful as those whose abilities were in their muscles. All were welcome who could commit to the ideals of the Legion, preserving the peaceful life of sentient beings throughout the universe. Among all the wonder and the awe of space and interplanetary battles and politics, issue after issue, as the team regularly proclaimed their loyalty as they called out, "Long live the Legion," all but shouted the mantra, "It is our differences that make us stronger. United, we are strong. Divided, we are weak." Each of us is unique, and when we bring these uniquenesses together, we can move asteroids and save the galaxy. Curled up on the sofa with our bag of chips and our flimsy stapled together sheets of newsprint, we learn this from a bunch of teenagers from the future. And we grow older. And we hear this conviction echoed all around us. We see it in the non-human world as we encounter it. Charles Darwin saw it as he contemplated a tangled bank. At the end of his The Origin of Species, he wrote, "It is interesting to contemplate a tangled bank, clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth. And to reflect that these elaborately constructed forms, so different from each other and dependent upon each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting on us. There is a grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone circling on according to the fixed law of gravity from so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved." As we've built in our culture on Darwin's discoveries, over the decades we have learned more and more that our independent ecology is powered and enlivened by a diversity of species and habitats and rituals that dazzles our minds. We know that we have to work very hard to maintain single, non-diverse ecosystems, whether vast fields of single crop of corn or wheat, or single kinds of grass in our lawns or our golf courses. We know that when we selectively breed animals with only other members of their closest kin, we introduce weakness and disease into their bodies. And despite demands for orthodoxy from strong, powerful voices, we hear the proclamation of strength in diversity in the text of many of the religious traditions that we have built to grapple with the reality of life together with others. In the Christian scriptures, this is most explicitly shared in the first epistle or letter written by Paul to one of the churches he planted in his wandering mission. The fledgling church in Corinth was troubled by interpersonal conflict. "Now, there are varieties of gifts," wrote Paul in his first letters. "To each is given the manifestation of Spirit for the common good. To one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit. To another gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another the working of miracles. To another prophecy. To another discernment of spirits. To another various kinds of tongues. To another the interpretation of those tongues. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, he wrote, who allots to each one individually just as the Spirit chooses. We are all parts of the same body, though we have different strengths and callings. In the Islamic tradition, many progressive Muslims focus on surahs or verses in the Quran, which value diversity in creation and pluralism within human communities. One example of such a verse is Surah 49, verse 13. People, is written, we created you all from a single man and a single woman and made you into races and tribes so that you could recognize one another. For many Muslims, this surah is a call to see that human categories of ethnicity and class and gender and sexual orientation are not criteria on which we are to judge each other and each other's righteousness, but rather reasons for curiosity, reasons to come to know each other. We were created in rich diversity, and this must be celebrated. And throughout a wide range of Buddhist texts as well, we find the notion of skillful means, the idea that each individual is to be guided toward enlightenment, toward the Buddha's path in a way that meets their abilities to hear and to learn. Adapting the message to be appropriate for the audience acknowledges that each of us has different abilities. This is not seen as a shortcoming, but something to be skillfully adapted to. We are not all the same. In all of these traditions, there is a demand that we understand that we need not be alike to love and live together, to share the glories and tragedies of this life. In fact, our very differences are our strength and are necessary for life and spirit to thrive. It's no wonder that when we shudder in horror at the thoughts of racial purity, or feel called to ponder deeply the ethics of genetic elimination of traits we may find troubling, because we know deep down that difference and diversity are the glory of this world which has birthed us. I come away from reflection sparked by my connection with those teenagers from the future, united and powerful in their diversity, with three major understandings. First, we are indelibly shaped by the literature we encounter, especially in our earliest years. You may not have read comic books. Or if you did, you may have read Spider-Man instead of the Legion. And if you did, perhaps the notion that with great power comes great responsibility, the core of the Spider-Man mythos, lives deep within you still. Perhaps it was Anne of Green Gables, where you learned that to have a kindred spirit in this world enabled you to weather the worst storms. Perhaps Yertle the turtle taught you that even the smallest among us can change the world for the better. For each of us, it will be different. For some, it will have more power than for others. Some of us have questioned what we learned from our earliest explorations and discarded or reworked it as we grew in knowledge and worldview and experience. But our beginning encounters with imaginary worlds shape us. Second, I think that looking at our commitment to diversity through the lens of something like the Legion of Superheroes reminds me that our work cannot solely be to want to bring people through these doors who are exactly like us, who think and look and believe exactly like we do. True, there are values around which we rally, many of which Robert Fulghum shared and Julia shared here: the use of reason in our religious life, commitment to building a just and peaceful world, acknowledgement that both the individual conscience and the collective web are of primary worth. But who's to say that holding those values means that we listen to and sing the same music, or read the same books, or raise our children the same way, or build the same kind of families, or think that church means the same thing? Isn't it beautiful and humbling to know that others see and hear and experience and interact with the world differently than we do? Are we ready to welcome the rich possibilities of difference here inside these walls? Are we willing to risk what feels like the safety of how we've always been to welcome the powerful possibility of the future? These are not questions that will go away. They are not questions we can stop asking as we ponder and plan for our future and the future of our shared ministry. Finally, these reflections for me on diversity have an important meaning for our work outside these walls. Our work building a world of justice, our work encountering those who may not share much in common with us. Sorry, I'm bumping around here on my page. When I served our congregation in Las Vegas, I took part in an organization called Nevadans for the Common Good, a collection of churches and other organizations working for social change in our communities. I paused sometimes when I was sitting at a table with other religious leaders, and I knew that if we weren't talking about the vulnerable elderly or human trafficking, which were the things that we were focused on, if we were talking about marriage equality, say, or reproductive justice, I knew that the conversation would be very different and what felt like deep unity would be challenged. But I also sit in wonder as I read about reasons, for example, why some conservative evangelical Christians are getting more and more involved in the environmental movement. They are not there for the reason that I am there. I'm in that conversation because my theology, our theology, says that we are inextricably part of the ecology and life of this planet, and that we are responsible for its thriving because it is us. It is our neighbor. Instead, the evangelicals may be there because they understand that God gave them the holy task of stewardship of this earth. We have a pretty different understanding of why, but we're both in the conversation, both in the work. All this from brightly colored stories of brightly colored youth in some imagined future sold from spinner racks in a corner store. My colleague, the Reverend Tom Owen Toll, writes, "When we dream alone, it's only a dream. But when we dream together, it can be the beginning of a reality." May we honor the places where our dreams begin to grow in our hearts and our minds. May we open ourselves to the glorious diversity around us and among us, welcoming difference lovingly as a blessing and not fearfully. Challenging ourselves to keep our eyes and ears and hearts open to the beauty of the tangled bank which gave us birth and the wonder of a vision of a future filled with hope and courage. And so I say to you, what I first read as a child, which stirred my heart with a vision of that rich and hopeful future, and which I now understand to mean all of this that I have said to you, long live the Legion. Thank you. I'll invite you now to rise in body or spirit. I've made you sit a long time, so I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, "We Would Be One."
Ourselves anew.
Please join me as Reverend Ian extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Aren't these pictures fabulous? Jack, thank you so much. I said to Jack, superheroes, but they can't be copyrighted, so superheroes, and just they're fabulous. Thank you, as always. I hope I get to see a lot of you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. I'm certainly looking forward to this momentous time in our life as a congregation and a time in our shared ministry. I share with you, in closing, the words of the Reverend Marjorie Bones Wheatley. If recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and you are white, it will not matter. If you are female and I am male, it will not matter. If you are older and I am younger, it will not matter. If you are progressive and I am conservative, it will not matter. If you are straight and I am gay, it will not matter. If you are Christian and I am Jewish, it will not matter. If we join spirits as kinfolk, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter. In this spirit, we build community and move toward restoration. In this spirit, friends, go in peace to love and serve the world.
It's the main thing from Star Wars. Well, I didn't have the music from Superman. Yes. But that was our intention.